Hello, everybody! It is Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this Things That Scare Players series, we're back on that. We're talking about things that scare Soulblight Gravelords with my lovely guest. And you may be wondering, Rocco, why are you not wearing sleeves? Well, it's after this man here who has made a bold fashion statement and a bold statement on Age of Sigmar in general. Introduce yourself. Man of a million
Uh,
names.
yeah. So my name's Brendan. You might know me from the Cubic Shenanigans Warhammer podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and you might also know me on Twitter as hobby_bear.
Yep.
And for those of you that have been around long enough, you know that I've decided that the title is the Lord of Death.
Yes.
U.S. region. But
Very true. And actually, as a quick little aside too, is a fun thing. When I first met you in Discord, I'm like, oh cool, hobby bear, whatever. And then I hear like there's this tournament organizer, Brendan on Twitter, he goes by Lord of Death. And then there was another place with a third name, and I went, oh my god, this is the same person? He's the Blood Bowl guy that I know. No, that can't be him. No, that can't be. You have your finger in every little thing from the Midwest out, I swear. And I love it, man. Oh,
yeah, I have had historically a lot of time. I was able to get into the hobby on the competitive side, right when Age of Sigmar was starting. I've been playing since I was 10 years old, which
preach.
means I've been playing for a very long time.
Yeah.
Uh, the I've had a love for the death factions in the Age of Sigmar setting right from the outset. There was a player in early AOS 1 by the name of Tony Moore out in the UK
Mm-hmm.
who was running this Nagash list. I saw it and I said, this is so cool. I think there's
Yeah.
something here. I dove deep on it, and then I just pursued that all the way through. And while I have part of every single army in Age of Sigmar, the armies that you're most likely to see me at the table playing are Death armies.
Yep. Yep. And as the American Lord of Death here, who's coming off of a decent tournament result, you know, if you
Yeah, it
want
was fine.
take
It was
it, yeah,
okay.
yeah, you did all right. Show them what you won. Show them what you got there.
Yeah, so we just got back from the Kansas City teams. We
Mm-hmm.
won Best Team of Generals. I
Mm-hmm.
was playing Soulblight Gravelords. So we
Yep.
have our we have our tickets to the Age of Sigmar World Championship events in Atlanta, Georgia, come the end of the year.
That's right, folks. I brought you Charlie, who just won the ticket to the chocolate factory. Don't say I don't actually find experts in my circle. Dang it, we got one right here. And again, we're going to be talking about the vampires, the zombies, the skeletons, the blood knights, the whole kit and caboodle. There's so much to this book that I feel got a little bit overshadowed by the OBR release. And what, just because, honestly, I know this is the weakness thing, but it's just hitting me. It's been talked down a little bit compared to other death books. What are some strengths? Like, give me quick elevator pitch. Give me 30 seconds. I'm so sorry I'm jumping on you with this.
Yeah.
Hit me.
The strength of the Soulblight Gravelords book is built on the back of one thing in particular, and that's you're able to field a zillion bodies for basically nothing.
Mm.
Now, the list I took to Kansas City Open was 260 zombies and 4 heroes.
Yep.
That's a skew list, and that's not something you should reasonably expect. It is absolutely reasonable, though, to field 100 to 160 bodies and then also still be able to take hammers.
Mm.
Some of that is going to be part of your 160. But
Yep.
you're going to be able to take a huge chunk of models, flood the board, choke off parts of it, and deny your opponent's ability to get to places on the board to either take objectives or score battle tactics. And for many opponents, they're going to take what's theirs. You can basically automatically deny their grand strategy simply by playing the game.
Yeah, which is great. And again, I'm sorry for jumping that on you. That wasn't original on the script, but he's just that good, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what are some things that you're scared about? What are you worried about as a vampire? What, you're gonna run out of blood because you're gonna kill everybody? What is this?
Yeah, so your army breaks down into really two categories. You're going to have units that are vampires and units that are summonable.
Mm.
Overwhelmingly, the units that are summonable don't really do very much in terms of offensive output. They're meant to be speed bumps. They're meant to be objective takers. The exception to that primarily is Graveguard. You can build units of Black Knights to be offensive charge pieces that do mortal wounds, but overwhelmingly, your summonable units are going to be kind of your objective takers, your body blockers.
Okay.
Your vampires, or your other half, your vampires are primarily going to be your means of dealing damage. They're the one. Basically, every single vampire in this book has some number of attacks, 3x3s, Rend 1, damage 2. That's the vampire, and then their mount comes after that, or if they're Vangorian lords, some of their extra attacks.
Yeah.
Obviously, Manfred and Neferata have their own things.
Yeah, they're their own special. So all that stuff is great, but what are you worried about then? What keeps you up at night?
So it's the fact that you're going to end up splitting those things. Your cheap summonable chaff units, if your opponent is able to deal enough damage, is going to churn through those pretty quickly.
Okay.
The presence of things that turn off Inspiring Presence is huge, and if you can get a zombie or a skeleton or two to stick, you're in great shape. But if the unit goes, that's when you're in trouble. The vampires themselves have a increased durability now with the way that the hunger triggers after them fighting, so they're going to stick around a little bit longer. But if you lose a vampire, that's a huge loss. You can't get that back. Summonable units you can get back, and they pose a horrific threat to your opponent all game because they're going to be thinking about your grave sites. Losing your heroes is big, but the other thing about this army is it is unbelievably slow. The majority of what you have is going to be movement 4, movement 5. If your opponent has the ability to outdrop you and zone you out of your grave sites or your ability to move out, you might be trapped by your own summonable units, and that's bad news. At the Kansas City Open, there were a couple of lists we didn't want me to see because they were 1-drops, and they had the mobility to pin me in, meaning that I wasn't going to be able to set up enough things off board to block and screen and do all that. I was going to have to set up on table and try and fight my way through that. That's
rough. So are we looking at like the Iron Jaw Pig Rush kind of a list? Something that has forward movement that's like really wound dense?
Yep. So if you can get that into a 1-drop in Blood Tubes, which a lot of you can, that's something that you don't love seeing. The way that zombies works right now is the damage that those pigs are going to do, they're basically going to kill themselves in exchange. So we're going to take that example, we're going to set it to the side. I'll be the first to tell you the zombie war scroll needs changing.
Tell me about it then. Hijack the episode, it's okay.
So
we're in the cube now, folks.
We're in the cube. So the zombie war scroll has an ability that when a model is slain by an attack, you get to roll a dice, and on a 5-up, the attacking unit suffers a mortal wound. There's no range limiter to that. It's just that period. So a unit of 20, right?
With melee though, right?
With melee.
Okay.
So a unit of 20 zombies at 115 points is on average going to do
115. Okay. Yeah.
They're gonna do 6 2/3 wounds to the attacking unit, assuming you kill them.
Yeah. And you'll kill them. They don't have. Do they have an armor save now, or is it a 6-up?
They have a 6-up save right now, and they've got a 6-up ward. There are sub factions that let you get to 5-up wards pretty reliably. And that becomes its own mess. But you're going to make pretty good point for point exchanges with that 20 brick, where you kill it, then you're going to resummon it. You're going to be able to summon it 3 inches away from something, ideally on an objective, taking it from your opponents. So we're going to take the 260 zombie list. We're going to put it to the side because it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work that way.
Not at all.
It does.
Do not do that.
Right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, do not, and anybody else involved, totally an outlier. It's okay. All right.
If they change it to damage coming from 3 inches away, the zombie war scroll has a different level of value. So cool. Or even 1 inch, right? We're going to put that to the side. But overall, you're going to have these very slow summonable things that are durable, but they're not going to do very much damage. And if your opponent can clear through that to get to your vampires, that's not great.
So what are some better examples then? Teach
So
me.
so really common lists right now are built around the Legion of Blood,
Mm-hmm.
which includes at least one Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon
Okay.
and Neff, and then
Yeah.
another hammer.
Sure.
That's either a second Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon or a big brick of Blood Knights.
Yep. And as a reminder to our viewers here, again, hammers are the offensive units. Some things I like having at least three because like if you charge all three at once, you win out in activation order. With the I go, you go, and again, having multiple threats for redundancy is amazing. And this armory does sound like it has a lot of threats.
It can.
Okay.
You can also build no threats, like what the 260 zombie list was, meaning that it
Fair.
doesn't matter what you put your energy into,
Yeah.
it's all useless.
I love that. I
So
love that. Take away the choice, everything sucks, even if you do good. Love it. Love
everything,
it.
everything sucks.
Yep.
So Legion of Blood is one of the really common lists right now, which is
Okay.
built around at least one Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, Neff, and a third hammer, either Blood Knights or another Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. So
Mm-hmm.
you're typically going to be somewhere between 2 and 3 drops. There's a
Okay.
mix of a foot hero or two in there, a corpse cart for additional summoning power, and
Sure.
then chaff. Um, so in a list like that, you've struck a really nice balance between summonable bodies
Yeah.
that are going to be able to block off parts of the board, hold your objectives for you,
Mm-hmm.
um, do the things that you need to do, and also very aggressive hammers in the form of some variety of vampire, where
Sure.
you're going to be able to send them into your opponent and do some damage. The strength of that list in particular is that you're going to have 2 units that are ethereal,
Mm.
um, and that are so a 3-up in which they suffer no rend.
Yep.
Um, Pretty good.
Yeah.
That pairs especially well with the way that the hunger works, where they're going to be able to heal after they fight. So they're going to try and make you fight first with whatever it is that they have,
Mm-hmm.
and then heal up whatever damage you've done to them, and then
Sure.
operate around the rest of the board, having taken what amounts to no damage.
Okay. So
So
what is that list afraid of?
volume, 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 volume.
Okay.
So things that have a high quantity of shots
Mm-hmm.
in the shooting phase or in melee,
Okay.
uh, really all of this doesn't like shooting. Right now with sharpshooters where you can pull stuff out,
Yeah.
don't love that a ton, but this particular example, we're talking about mounted characters. The best way to work through those targets is a lot of attacks.
Okay.
You're gonna fail 3-ups at some
Mm.
point. That's the way that it works. If you're gonna roll 60 dice, you're gonna roll some 1s and 2s in there.
I
That's just
hope.
life.
I hope, man. I roll too many ones and twos sometimes. It's just,
Some people won't,
yeah.
but
They should play Night
something like
Haunt then. That's their own problem. They can be in Rendell the
yeah,
faction. Good for them. you know.
right.
So
So lists like that really don't like to see volume.
okay.
Lists like that also still don't like being pinned in, because you want to bully your opponent around the board
Mm-hmm.
with those fast hammers.
Sure.
Um, so something like pig spam, they're going to be a little bit better against
Mm-hmm.
because it's more concentrated attacks that have higher individual damage, higher individual rend.
Okay.
That list doesn't care about that a ton, but they don't like being cornered like that.
Mm.
They want to be going out and taking different parts of the battlefield.
Okay.
But right now, Soulblight's in such a place where the amount of bodies you can put on the field with summonable,
Mm-hmm.
and then the number of vampires that you can take for your hammer component. They
Yeah.
don't have to be vampires. There are, like we said, Graveguard and Black Knights
Yeah.
that can be offensive like that.
Makes sense.
There's a very good all summonable list, but that's a
That's
separate
another.
bit.
Yeah. That's another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have you on
Um,
as a specialist for another episode then, because you just love these vampires so much, dude, and I love that for you.
yeah.
This is awesome
So
that we have Death Factions Ascendant right now. So would
this
OBR
book is really good.
would OBR be a rough matchup for Soulblight?
Not really.
Okay.
So the strength of OBR is that they're hyper elites, right? Every
Okay.
model's really good. Every model has a good save. You've got a ton of command points.
Sure.
One of the things that OBR really struggles with is debuffs. If they're going to get beaten to turning things off, the
Okay.
lore of the the lore of the death mages in this book, which is what
Mhm.
necromancers have access to,
Yeah.
are really stinking good.
Okay.
-1 to wound, -1 damage is one spell. -1 attack is another spell.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
casting value 6s. That's so good. Um, Being able to turn things off is huge.
I'm gonna get you for an OBR episode next if you're not careful, man. Listen. So what are vampires worried about? Is it nothing? Is that the answer?
Right now,
Being
it's
pinned?
not much.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So right now, it's not much.
Uh-huh.
Being pinned is the thing that you are most afraid of. That is the bit of pairings that
I feel like a
we
gremlin.
were...
I keep going in because I'm just so enthralled by this. This is awesome. All right. Okay, so being pinned, being shot.
Yep, being pinned, being shot, but your KO matchup you still like, because KO is going to be so elite that they're not going to be able to be everywhere on the board. You're going to be able to use your grave sites to the advantage to bring your models up and get on objectives and slowly choke the board off, where their ability to fly high is going to be removed. They're basically going to get stuck in some place that you've picked for them.
How do you feel about LRL then? Like, is Techless stopping these debuffs going off and concentrated shots bothering you?
So it depends. Turning off the spells is kind of a bummer, but when you're looking at the kind of army that you're going to be up against, even if you're not 260 zombies, let's say you've got 100 to 160 summonable models.
Yeah, be it skeletons, zombies, and like a block of 30 graveguards somewhere. Yep.
I still feel pretty good about that matchup. Techless himself isn't going to be able to do enough damage to all of that. The Legion of Bloodless doesn't love it a ton, right? Because you're bypassing their advantage, which is the 3-up unrendable save.
Yeah.
So you're going to be doing mortals on 5s and 6s with your shooting. But if you can't put enough shots down range, then it doesn't matter. If you can summon units up and charge them in, your vampires are going to be protected, and they're going to be able to go in and do their work.
Nice.
I'm not saying nothing can beat it, right? But there are some real boogeymen.
How about Squigs, Brendan? Tell me your horror story. Let's finish it. Let's finish on a high note. Tell me about the one game that got away on you.
Yep. So I did lose one game at the Kansas City Open. We were playing against a team that had a Gitz pairing with Jaws of Mork that the rest of my team really didn't want to see. We were playing in Only the Worthy, so 3 Galatian champions to my 1. He had 2 units of Spore Splatter Fanatics to try and push up and zone me out.
Yeah.
And that's right. We just talked about I don't like getting pinned in. I set up a bunch of things off the board in my head, going, your average roll here is going to be a 7. I'm going to budget for a 9.
Yeah.
And I put my grave sites down accordingly, and I planned my units out accordingly to that.
And this is specifically too to make sure that they wouldn't be in range to charge you.
Well, not so much. Well, so not so much in range to charge me, because I was going to outdrop him. It was about setting my units down. Because if he doesn't have those Spore Splatter Fanatics, and he's the 12 drops or whatever that he is, I'm going to set down 160 zombies 9 inches away from you. I'm going to stand on the objectives, and I'm going to laugh at you and tell you that the game is over.
Yeah, makes sense.
So the first one he rolls is a 10, and I go, tough. That's just dice.
Yep, came close to you.
Second one he rolls is an 11, and I go, okay, I got a problem.
Yep.
Because it restricted the amount of area where I was going to be able to put down my units, meaning that I wasn't going to be able to be as far upfield as I would have liked, meaning that he could backfill in behind those Spore Splatter Fanatics.
Yeah.
Because in reality, my zombies will kill him back on the 5-ups when he does damage to me.
Sure.
But I don't want him to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and you don't get that extra movement from charging somebody to make up for your 4-inch move on your zombies. And
exactly.
It's a whole cascading effect there.
Now, for the most part, in most of my games, I'm going to set up 9 inches away from you, and I'm not going to charge. There's no value in me doing it. It just creates opportunities for you to do more damage to me in your turn.
Yep.
One of the things that my army really struggled with, I played Gitz twice, and in both times I really struggled, was the Squig Herd.
Okay.
The way that their recursion works, the amount of damage that they do, shoot through a unit of zombies every turn. Pretty much no problem. So trying to keep them out of the meat of my army was one of the most important things by just kind of charging in with 2 units, tagging them, at 3 inches with both of them, hoping that those units would last long enough for them to not be able to proceed forward. But in that game that I lost, he ended up parking a unit of 24 squig herd on one objective, and no amount of zombies that I could throw at him was going to get them off of the objective.
No. And their recursion, too, is for each squig handler. On a
So
dice
good.
roll, they bring back D3 squigs per handler. There's if they roll like a 1 to do the thing, the squig handler gets eaten. It's a fun ability, but it's very good. And
very tough to deal with.
Yeah. And a smart player will know to kill the squigs off at certain areas, cause more to flee. There's a whole bunch to mess with that. But good to know there is a silver bullet, and it's filled with teeth.
Gits are a very tough army to play against, but if you outdrop them, you can feel pretty good about that. So this army is going to want to rush hard into being as few drops as possible. I'm sure that there's a way to build this where you're, a zillion, but one of the rules that you have,
like what would you need? How many more artifacts do you need? How many warlord battalions are you taking? Right?
Yeah, not a ton.
Yeah.
The artifacts are good, but usually there's a clear-cut winner that you want.
Yeah.
You might want something like Manticore Venom on your Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon.
Love a +1 to wound.
Yeah, +1 to wound is pretty good, but at the same time, are you really going to pass up the artifact that makes you immune to rend?
No.
Probably not.
Not at all. You've got the Ilfencarnian Phylactery, too. It's just fun to say.
Right. Are you going to pass up a 5-up ward?
No.
Probably not. Are you going to pass up an artifact to be -1 to wound?
No.
Probably not. Like, all of those things are really good. You have some really good heroic actions. You have some really good monstrous actions. Your base army battle traits are fantastic. Being able to summon back summonable heroes, those are your White Kings on foot and horse.
Which is just so crazy to me that that's a thing now. I love that so much.
Huge. Your battle tactics are super easy to achieve.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you have to prevent against as a Soulblight player is actually being too confident.
I like that.
It's true. You are going to, in its present iteration, get very comfortable with having some clear-cut advantages that a number of your opponents aren't going to have. And if you don't take a moment to stop and think about what you're doing, you can get pulled into a trap.
Yeah. And especially because you'll beat up on a new player that doesn't know it yet. You're gonna run into a vet who's like, okay, I game planned for this. Or they're gonna go for this strategy on this way. I know enough to zone out certain grave sites, make them have to put their army so far away, make them stuck behind their line of summonable units, be it zombies or whatever, and they'll know target priority. And it's how do you as a player bounce back from that? Is where you separate the good from the okay players to great. And he's got the trophy to prove that he's great. Now, thank you, Brendan, for coming on. Any closing thought?
It'll be really interesting to see where this book lands in the next General's Handbook after a round of points adjustments. I think this might be a very different conversation. You have a couple of units that are extremely efficient right now.
Yeah.
I think the last time we saw Soulblight Gravelords is at like a 67% win rate or something like that.
Yes, it was.
It's
Daughters of
really
Cain dropped to like a 40-something, and I was shocked.
Yeah, just wall-to-wall bangers.
Yeah.
In this book, and I'm a little embarrassed to say that on my first reading, I didn't understand all the pieces that they were trying to move together. There are some units in this book that I think are really good, but they just are outshone by a couple of other war scrolls.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they can find some adjustments in there and make that work, because I think all 5 of the legions have something.
Yeah, they're all good.
And there's not many war scrolls in here where I go, yeah, there's no point to this. Like, even the humble Fellbat has a role.
I love those stupid bats. So I with the Pants Mafia, we did a Path to Glory. Those Fellbats were winning me games in the old book. I saw them in this new book still, and they still scratch that itch for me. They do
They're
so
still
much.
good.
I almost said something inappropriate on camera, so we'll cut the episode here. Thank you, everybody. Be nice to each other, roll some dice, play games, and see you next time. Bye.